Build a better world, God said. Well, what does that mean? How can I build a better world? It's so big, with millions of people on this planet. I'm just one small and helpless being. What can I do to build a better world? That's the point, God said. Just build a better you. Well, I guess that's where it all begins. It all begins with building a better you. So I went about the challenge of rebuilding myself, and here's what I learned in the process. I discovered a singular teaching that had the power to change and transform my life. I started to become the person I always wanted to be, from the inside out. Because if I couldn't change myself, how could I think of making a change in the world, or help anyone else to make a change either? Until a few years ago, I felt like a caged bird. I was caught in a trap of social dictates, living in an emotional prison. It was my own personal dungeon of depression, my own torture chamber of ego and self. But to the outside world, I looked really good. I was a successful professional, and I got a lot of things done. I was highly productive. Everyone respected me. But at night, when I laid alone in my bed, consumed by anger and resentment, I realized I was not happy. I wanted to be that free bird with powerful wings that would allow me to soar high in the skies, and like an eagle, I could view my surroundings with keen judgment and full knowledge of my loftiness. I could seek my own destiny with confidence. But I was that caged bird, and my wings were clipped. I was intellectually crippled. My emotional feet were tied from the hurt and the pain and the disappointment of life's experiences. Oh, but I wanted to be like that free bird. But my cage was strong. To escape that cage of life's limits, life harmed by culture and society and the experiences of gender and economics, seeking an escape from those exterior forces and an internal prison, I refused to remain in my barricade. And it meant I had to face my demons, which basically are the same 7 major barriers to all individual progress. They affect everyone. No one is immune. And these obstacles are the same for individuals as well as for global human progress. Here's the 7. Negative behaviors, mental weaknesses, social dependencies, psychological instabilities, intellectual misunderstanding, egotistical frailties, and last but not least, emotional insecurities. Ripping away these bad habits means one has to be willing to change, not just on the surface, but deep down in the soul. I had to unlock the bars on my cage and unlearn what I had been taught by family, society, class, culture, ethnicity, race, and gender. And from these numerous factors, I had to relearn what would make me strong, what would provide me the rewards and not the limitations. I didn't want to continue to live out the driving messages that taught me to live in accordance with all the negatives attached to my experiences. They were impediments to my growth, to my transformation, preventing me from recognizing who I really was so I could reach my true potential. When I looked at the world, I saw that humanity had proven its limitless capability to achieve wonderful things. I think of how humankind has lived and developed throughout history. I marvel at our ever-improving and continually changing condition. In the last 150 years, the world has changed more rapidly and dramatically than in all previous millennia combined. It's the 21st century. In today's world, technology grows exponentially. We communicate through the air like magic. We're doing it right now. We can live in outer space We can clone animals and humans. We can implant body parts with bionic components. We cure disease. We prolong life. We have the power to voyage below the ocean, to journey into outer space, and to measure deep in the depths of the earth. Humanity has proven it has limitless capability to achieve greatness and benefit humanity. And that's when we demonstrate our nobility. But it has also achieved the disgraceful. Children are still starving. Civil strife continues. Men in military uniforms, and sometimes their sisters, engage in wars that prove nothing more than those 7 barriers to human progress, to our progress. Negative behavior, mental weakness, social dependency, psychological instability, intellectual misunderstanding, egotistical frailties, which are irresponsible and reckless egos, and emotional insecurity. When we begin to recognize any one of these barriers in ourselves, we have the opportunity to wake up from that sleep that these barriers have induced. And it's then that we are able to choose whether we want to keep on that path and perpetrate those barriers to our individual human progress, or decide to change ourselves. What I learned that helped me transform myself away from those barriers to become a healthier human being, willing to make our world a better place, was a simple but deeply profound teaching about having nobility. It was something I was never taught, but what I learned is that nobility is a powerful force that heals us. But I had to understand what nobility really meant, because it would ultimately lead me to self-mastery, to a confident humility, a clarity of thinking, and a very meaningful life. So I hope that sharing with you my understanding of this very important and mighty teaching about nobility will empower you, will uplift your life as much as it has mine. Okay, so what is nobility? How does one become noble? Are we born with it? Is it developed? Who teaches nobility? Our parents, our families, our teachers, our friends, our religion? And why should we even bother to be noble? What would be the benefit? What does nobility really mean? When most people hear the word noble, they think of high-born, titled royalty, blue-blooded patrician aristocrats, a royal lord or a lady. But that's royalty, but not necessarily nobility. To be noble is to be distinguished, high-minded, magnanimous, dignified, honorable, worthy, admired, virtuous, respectable, having integrity, distinction, composure, presence, a loftiness of character and spirit that scorns the petty or dishonorable. One who possesses elevated principles and consistently adheres to them. So to be noble is to be righteous, good, upright, decent, moral, ethical, reputable, unselfish, generous, magnificent, splendid, imposing, dignified, proud, impressive, majestic, glorious, awesome, regal, worthy. That's great. I'm supposed to be that way. But if I'm not, help! How do I become noble? I really had to research and explore the meaning of all of this. And it wasn't overnight, but I found the answer that worked for me. And it was in a book called The Hidden Words, a remarkable and commanding book written by Baha'u'llah, who founded the Baha'i Faith. In The Hidden Words, Baha'u'llah directs humanity to become noble. He tells us that nobility is an important, practical, and metaphysical truth that we must exert every effort to understand so we can achieve. This appealed to me because the Baha'i Faith is a contemporary religion that now claims over 6 million followers from every corner of the globe. And it's the second most widespread religion in the world, exceeded only by Christianity. The Hidden Words offered me a sensible and spiritual instruction that defined and clarified nobility. It also provided discipline and wisdom two qualities that I very much desired. So now I had a reference, the hidden words, and I was able to put nobility in a context that made sense to me. This is the instruction that literally allowed me to transform myself into a noble individual. And I was that individual already, but I hadn't recognized it. Baha'u'llah says, "Noble have I created thee, yet thou hast abased thyself. Rise then unto that for which thou wast created." So we are already created noble when we're born, yet we bring ourselves down. And Baha'u'llah is saying, bring yourself up for what you were created to be. He says, "O son of spirit, I created thee rich. Why dost thou bring thyself down to poverty? Noble I made thee. Wherewith dost thou abase thyself? Turn thy sight unto thyself, that thou mayest find me standing within thee, mighty, powerful, and self-subsisting." So Baha'u'llah is saying, God has created you rich. Why do you bring yourself to poverty of spirit? You've been made noble. Why do you abase yourself? Look into yourself, that you might find that which is good and godly within you, mighty, powerful, and self-subsisting. If I was already created noble, born with nobility, that means no one can take something away from me that's already inside of me, that I'm born with. But I had to affirm this in the depths of my soul. I had to understand that this clear instruction really was a wonderful promise. If I believed in a God or a greater being, then I had to believe that I already was born noble. I'm very grateful for this teaching about nobility because it really is a signal to me that not just me, but that human excellence is achievable through the power really of belief. It's that simple. If you can believe it, you can be it. And nobility is a spiritual reality. This is the reflection of what is virtuous about us. This is the reflection of our strength and fortitude. Now, some may call it self-esteem or self-confidence. It really doesn't matter what the words are. It's that we have to discover that individual nobility through a newer education, a different experience. Look at the humility of an infant. If that isn't love, I don't know what there is. In them is nobility. They are born with it. But we must ensure that they grow up knowing that they are a noble being. We must reinforce that in any infant, in any child, so they can grow up to be a noble adult human being. Nobility is there, just waiting for us to unleash our potential for human excellence, because that is what the power of nobility is, human excellence. So if each one of us would have been taught from our earliest childhood, from when we were an infant, that we were valued, that we were important, that we were appreciated for our unique talents and capabilities, that we were worthy of all the best that this human experience offers, wouldn't humanity be indeed as great as Baha'u'llah tells us we must become, that we must recognize? This is why I'm sharing this information, because if families and society and government and agencies and institutions do not teach nobility, how can you practice it? For those of us who've been given the empowering gift of what nobility really means, we must share this information to transform not only ourselves, but the world that we love, the world that we are living in, the world that is suffering, the world that is controlled by a culture of violence. We are suffering from a vacuum of virtue among our leaders, and every day we witness the cracks and craters in our universal moral ozone. We debase ourselves individually and collectively, remaining ignorant while exhibiting our lower nature. We've demonstrated that behavior for thousands of years through wars, racism, sexism, and greed. Baha'u'llah has clarified that religious racial, political, economic, and patriotic prejudices destroy the body of humanity. And as long as these prejudices prevail, the world of humanity cannot rest. For more than 6,000 years, this world has not been free from war, strife, murder, bloodthirstiness. And in every period, war has been waged in one country or another. And that war was due to either religious prejudice, racial prejudice, political prejudice, or patriotic prejudice. We know all too well that it is only with the abandonment of all of these prejudices that the world of humanity will be saved from the darkness that has consumed it. Once that happens, the world will be lit. It will attain the illumination of a higher consciousness. And this is critical for us to make our world a better place to leave to our descendants. You know, we are the ones who are now responsible for our own behavior, individually and collectively. That's why Baha'u'llah's teachings are important, to serve as a guide for all humanity. All religions have taught mankind to be noble, using different parables, but the same simple message over changing ages. But we are continuing to live in our lack of nobility. We are drowning in it. But now we have the opportunity to stop our self-destruction. And we must, because we can no longer risk the existence of the human race. We are a powerful species. We can choose to walk in the dark or choose to walk in the light. We can choose to destroy just as easily as we can choose to create. Today, it is our choice. Our society cannot be noble until we, as individuals, learn what nobility means. Then and only then can humanity achieve our great destiny. When we teach our children, our family, friends, our educators, our business and civic leaders that nobility is what is required to save humanity from destruction, then we begin to counter the consequences of the lack of our nobility. When we value others, appreciate others for their unique talents and capabilities, behave as worthy of all the best that this human experience can offer, then we change the world. But first, we change ourselves. If you don't believe you are noble, you cannot behave as though you are. Baha'u'llah's teaching of nobility was one of the greatest gifts given to me, and I want to give it to you. You don't have to be a Baha'i or a follower of Baha'u'llah to embrace this concept. You just have to embrace this concept which will serve you the best. Understanding your nobility is a spiritual reality. Remember that that's what will reflect our virtuousness, our strength and fortitude, self-esteem or self-confidence. Trust me, when your behavior is noble, it cannot be ignored. Nobility signals that human excellence is achievable, if nothing more than through the power of belief. If you believe it, you can be it. What helped me put nobility in perspective is reflecting on people in history who made their mark in the world and changed it for the better. They discovered their nobility and they used it. Some noble people became famous, some didn't. Some tell the story of our histories, like Harriet Jacobs, a slave who was the first African-American woman to document the despicable and insufferable experience of slavery in the United States. And who cannot be inspired by the bravery and dignity of the thousands of innocent men and women from many indigenous American tribes who were forced to walk a deathly, snow-filled trail of tears, whose children died in their footsteps. I think of Mother Teresa, who steadfastly served the poorest of the world's poor till her dying day, always instructing us that the path to God is paved with service to others. I also think of the great Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Be the change you want to see in the world. And another great man, Nelson Mandela, who stated, "It is what we make of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another." His long walk to freedom liberated not only a nation, but hearts all over the world. And how can we not be impressed and encouraged by the story of Tadia, the first woman to remove her face veil in 1848 in the ancient land of Persia? She was one of the earliest women in the struggle for human rights and equality. This legendary 19th century Persian poetess and legal scholar is known as Joan of Arc of the Eastern world. Tadia was a transformational leader who called for social and religious freedom in a place and at a time when she herself was not allowed either of those rights. Tadia's courage and sacrifice and commitment to justice continue to be an inspiration to all who learn her story. I am motivated by all these sheroes and heroes, and I'm sure you can think about someone you know or have known of that were the same noble beings as they. I want you for a moment now. Think about someone in your life who in your mind is noble. A lot of people think of their grandparents or friends who've passed on. Close your eyes for just 30 seconds and remember someone you knew, someone you know. They can be living, they can be real, they can be fiction. But in your mind, they are noble beings. Concentrate now. Imagine them and how they were noble. Envision their behavior and what made them noble. I asked you to do that exercise because if you can think of someone who you know or have known, who is or was a noble being, then you can imagine what nobility looks like. Acts of nobility become more real to you through the faces of people that you have recalled. And I'm sure those people expressed behaviors that fit those descriptions of nobility. I'm sure those individuals you thought of were distinguished, high-minded, honorable, admired, respected. They had great character. And I suspect that they too possessed elevated principles and consistently adhered to them. Anytime you feel you need to recapture the meaning of nobility, try that exercise and see how it affects you. If you are in difficulty or with another person having a difficult time, look at them differently. Look at them through noble eyes and see them as noble beings, because they too were born with nobility just as you were. But maybe they haven't connected with it yet. But you have connected with yours. When you're able to do that, and you can still treat them as a noble being, your entire demeanor will change the dynamic between you both, and it will shift it for the better. You might find that they don't respond to you any more nobly than before, because they haven't connected it yet. But do this with all you know and meet, and watch how your life changes. And along the way, share the concept of nobility with them. Explain to them how it has helped you, and then watch their life change too. Friends, every day provides each of us with an opportunity to connect and demonstrate our nobility, because that power is within us all. Remember, you are born with nobility. It is God-given, and no one can take away from you what you are born with inside of you. Nobility is in me, and you, and everyone else, despite how they may appear, despite how they might behave. People have to be willing to discover nobility, because it does require us to retrain our minds and retrain our hearts as well. It forces us to re-perceive who we are. And when we can do that to ourselves, we can do that with others. Nobility includes courage and commitment, and we are totally capable of achieving this. It might mean that we make Baha'u'llah's words a mantra, maybe remind ourselves every day, every hour, every moment if necessary. I certainly did. Those words of Baha'u'llah, I have created thee noble, why dost thou abase thyself? I was created noble, why am I not living up to it? When you teach this lesson to others, it grows deeper and greater inside you, because those teachings of Baha'u'llah's are for all humanity, not just me or you or only Baha'is. It's for everyone. Baha'u'llah's teaching of nobility frees us to soar as that free bird, with keen judgment, with great vision. So take this opportunity, this very moment, recognize your own nobility, and then begin recognizing the nobility of others. As you do this, you will enhance every noble quality, attribute, and virtue within you. Consider your nobility as a sacred contract with your Creator, and I promise you when you do, your life will change for the better.